Are there advantages to aging? Yes, I am Debbi-Jo Horton, and welcome to Advantages to Aging. Join my guests and I as we discuss aging and what makes for a healthy lifestyle, which results in a quality life. Thank you for joining me today. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Advantages to Aging. I'm DJ Horton, your host, and today I have with me Tonya Fines, who's a holistic health practitioner of her own firm, Tonya M. Fine Inc., and we are going to talk all about all those changes that are happening with us. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Welcome, Tonya.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I thought that today we might talk about how we can, as we go through all these stages in our lives, really look at embracing change. And I
Mm,
mean, that really starts when we're young, right? In our 20s and 30s, we can start to prepare ourselves both mentally and physically for the changes that come. So
right.
how do we do that?
Oh, well, that's a big question. It's a great question, and it's a loaded question because from person to person, what they do and how they, the changes that we all make or the things that we do is going to be different. But you're absolutely right. Change happens throughout our life. We go from being teenagers to, a lot of us go into a phase, a season of our life where now we're having children. So we're going through pregnancy and childbirth, and then there's the child rearing years, and then, then we get into this other season that's happening that can be very confusing and can seem to take years. And we just don't really, feels like from the neck down, who is this person? And of course, I'm talking about menopause, and that starts with, it can start with peri, and then going into menopause and then post menopause. So it's a season. And really it's something like, while I tell women, because you're a woman, you're going to go through menopause. It just happens. You can go through it like this, or you can go through it like this. And a lot of that is in the preparation and how you live your life leading up to that. And I'm not suggesting that you should at 20 think about, okay, well, I'm going to go into menopause one day, so here's what I should do. Not like that. But, at the end of the day, the more good things you do for your body, the better your body's prepared for that. And I think the better you are mentally to sort of, go through some of those changes, because you're going to become, I think when you take care of your body, you become very aware of changes, even subtle changes. And for women, when we're heading into that season of menopause, there's some there can be very small, very subtle changes that are there. And it'd be easy to be like, oh, it was just, I had a busy week or I had a stressful evening. But there's little things that start to happen that are kind of like your body saying, you know what, I'm gearing up for this season.
Mm.
Here's some things that you might experience. And then that's our turn to step into a place of power and go, okay, I need to make some changes. There's some things I need to do differently. And they don't have to be big, but they're necessary.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And taking those on in the little increments, when we start to notice those little things, isn't it so much easier than when we have to suddenly take on these huge things?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, let's just say, as an example, someone that lives mostly a sedentary lifestyle, doesn't make the best choices with food, and, spends 40, 50 years in that type of a lifestyle, and then come to a point in life where they're told, now we're in a very serious, different kind of situation. And if you don't make some changes to lose some excess body fat, to start moving your body to improve your cardiovascular health, here's kind of a grim outlook on what life might be like for you moving forward. So, that's a pretty extreme example. But, when it comes to women and the changes in our bodies, we don't have to spend it doesn't need to be that extreme, but there are going to be changes. And the things that we're doing now certainly have an impact on what that transition for us can be like, and just how better we are able to cope with, navigate it, and make those changes.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point because like we always have options. And the options just might be mindset options versus physical options, right? So
Right.
how we're looking at that
Hey, DJ here. Are you like what I used to be like, with multiple different bottles of supplements and minerals and nutrients and trying to remember when you're supposed to take what when? Gone are those days. Neora's simplified system packs active ingredients in the smallest amounts of products that you have to take, making keeping your wellness and weight management simple.
Oftentimes there's some misconceptions about getting older, about menopause, and about what we're capable of or what is totally off the table. I mean, there's so many misconceptions. Can you share some of those common ones and why they're misconceptions? Because I know when I was growing up, there was all kinds of stuff flying
Kinds of
around.
stories. So misconceptions in terms of things we're told or maybe think is just what's going to happen, like how awful and bad it's going to be.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah.
that's a good
Well,
place.
what first of all, what I love is that we're in an age now where like women talk about it. I can remember like being younger and hearing phrases like the change of life or she's going through the change. And I remember thinking like, I don't know what that is, but I want no part of it when I get older. Like because it was like little secret talks and very quiet on the phone and hush hush. But now
Yeah,
it's not like we're talking about it, which I think is wonderful because it's not some taboo thing. Our bodies are changing and they're meant to change. We're not supposed to be, our body is not designed to be prepping for carrying babies in our 50s and 60s. We're preparing for a different season in life. So things should be different to a
thank
point,
goodness for that.
right? Well, can you imagine? I can't imagine having my two
Ah,
little ones at this age. I mean, there's days I miss them being little, but I can't imagine the energy that it took and the activity. I mean, I'm in a different season.
yeah.
So the body is designed, like it's very brilliantly designed for these phases and transitions. So when it comes to menopause, I mean, one a funny story. I was visiting my daughter lives out in LA, and I don't know what it was we were talking about. We kind of this light banter going back and forth. And she was and my one of my sons was with us, and we were talking about how like they were actually kind of making fun of me, like, yeah, mom's getting older and she can't remember things anymore, and you kind of have to repeat stuff. And my son said something to the effect of like, well, just you wait because you're going to get older too. And she's like, well, so are you. And then she said, well, yeah, but I guess you have it easier because eventually I'm just going to go into menopause and then basically become a man. And I said, wait a second now,
Oh, no.
just a second. Well, she was joking, but I think there's this fear that some women have, like that all of a sudden they're going to gain a whole bunch of weight. All of
Mm,
a sudden they're going to have to deal with things like facial hair, and I think it sets up this like, oh my gosh, I'm not only going to feel different, I'm going to look different, and it's going to be impossible to deal with this. But that's not the case.
right.
There will be changes. More women find in their from 40s going, or even as young as 35, that they start to gain weight much more easily, that it's around the midsection, that it's more difficult to lose. But I'm going to challenge the thinking in that. How much of that how much of this should we be giving weight to as far as menopause? And how much of it is we've changed? We're probably not moving as much.
Mm,
Women in our age group tend to, maybe have a little more wine in the evening sometimes. We're not, at that like we're maybe not exercising as regularly as we were. Like when we're in our 20s and we want to look really good for all the boys and all of that, it's very easy to be motivated to hit the gym when you don't want to. It's
right.
a little different when you're in your late 40s, early 50s, and you're working a crazy work schedule week. You're just tired and you get home at the end of the day and you're like, I'm just done, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And
So
the change too is the whole attitude of why are you eating? When you're younger, you're eating because you need the energy because you're doing all of the things, right? And when
right.
we get older, that glass of wine usually is accompanied by, I don't know, maybe a
Charcuterie and all the good things,
charcuterie board or
right?
a box of chocolates. And it's because we're eating out of exhaustion and stress
Yeah.
versus we're hungry because we've expended all this energy. So you're right. There's a ton of things that, a lot of people just say, well, it's menopause. Well, no, it's not. It's the way that
Right.
you're looking at it.
Right. And it's like, menopause is definitely part of it because again, there's changes happening inside the body that are meant to happen. Again, who wants
Mm,
to be 60 and pregnant,
right. No, thank you.
or having little ones? Because this is the age where some of us are looking at, our children are getting married, they're doing their thing. We're excited about the possibility of grandchildren. So we have other things to look forward to that we do need our energy for.
Yes.
But we're not, if we're living the same habit, and I mean, I'm gonna hopefully I say this so it makes sense. You can live, I've always lived a very healthy lifestyle. It's something I enjoy. So it never felt like work to me. So eating right, exercising, lots of activity, easy thing to do for me. However, going into menopause, it's still, I had to, I couldn't back in my 20s and 30s when I was doing that, how I could, the quantity of what I could eat and the things that I could get away with,
Right.
not the same as they are now. So it's not even that, well, I have to completely change my lifestyle because I've always lived a really healthy lifestyle. I've always lived well, but I have to actually step back and take a really honest look at, okay, but you're also not going to the gym 5 days a week. You're only going 3 days a week now. There's other, yeah, I'm not moving in the same kind of intensity that
Mm,
I was. I'm not chasing kids around. My life is busy, but it's busy in different ways. So my healthy lifestyle, even with that, I've had to make adjustments. I would love to sit down in the evening and have like 2 glasses of wine on a Friday. But if I'm also going out on a Saturday and having wine, I kind of know, well, that's just not, now I'm not going to sleep really well Friday or Saturday night. So my Sunday's going to be kind of yucky, which bleeds into Monday. And then the week is just yuck.
yeah.
It's just that awareness. It's that awareness and going, well, what what changes do I need to make and what changes do I want to make? Because really, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But if you're sitting there feeling not that great and wondering why these things are happening, my first response would be, well, take a look at your day and then take a look at your week. What
Yes.
are the things you did? What are the things you did in excess? And what are the things that maybe you didn't do enough of? And how can we shift that? I don't want to call it balance, but shift that harmony a little bit. So it's more cooperative. You and your body are kind of more partners in what's happening right now with your body.
I love that partnership with your body. Can you imagine? So I just have
Mhm.
to throw this in here because I know oftentimes people look at menopause and all they see is the negatives. But ladies, let me tell you one of the biggest positives. I was thrown into menopause at 32 because I had to have a hysterectomy.
Yeah.
No more menstrual cycle. Yes. Thank you very much. So there are lots
That's
of great things to be looking forward to.
That's a huge win, and not just in terms of the, pain in the butt it can be, but just a cost, just from a cost perspective, it's one
Yeah.
thing that comes out of the grocery budget. It's like, well, when I'm getting things, I don't have to, that's not a part of my monthly expenses anymore. And yeah, I mean, I always say to women when they're coming to me and they're kind of in that funk, they're not happy about it. And you have to give a woman space to kind of mourn the loss of what she thinks she's losing just for a bit. Let her feel sad about it. But then the conversation takes a shift or change, and I challenge the thinking in terms of like, what are all of the things now that you have to look forward to that you didn't before? Like, if you're a wife and a mother, just a person,
Hmm.
you spent the better part of your years taking care of, nurturing, caring for other people. Well, now you get to put a little bit of that time into yourself because chances are your children are at least at an age where they can, where the fridge is, go make
Yeah.
yourself a sandwich, right? You're not needed in the same capacity, the same way that you were.
Right.
You've come to a season in life where you actually do have some time. And I think sometimes that might be the biggest fear for women is that all of a sudden the people in their life that needed them the way they did don't anymore. So that's another scary, or it's like a loss. They're like, oh, my body's changing. I'm gaining weight. I can't sleep. My mood is all over the place and my kids are leaving me. Like it's this compounded, this, oh my gosh. But when we start to have conversations and go, well, just a second now, still have my kids and they still need me. It's going to be different, but I have time now. I actually have time to put into myself as I go through this season. I can take some time and focus on me and not always be focusing on everybody else. And that can be really hard for women. I'm not discounting men, but it can be very hard or difficult for women because we are the nurturers and largely the nurturers and the caregivers and raising the family. So
And a
that
lot
can
of
be
our
a very foreign
identity,
thing.
a lot of our identity is wrapped up in that too. And so
Yeah.
making that shift with
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah. And
but
when a woman's willing to get on board with that,
mm,
the things looking at lifestyle changes or looking at lifestyle and actually having conversations about what she would like to do that she's never done. Never took a yoga class, would love to do yoga, and always wanted to take painting classes or dance classes. Well, now you can. And that's great for your body, great for your body, great for your mind. Now she's doing things that she's wanted to but couldn't. Now she's got something to look forward to. So her mood's lifted, she's motivated, she's moving. And it's amazing how just some of these little things start falling into place in such a serendipitous way.
yeah, absolutely. And and there, as we go along, a lot of times people, if you haven't experienced it, think that all of a sudden it's like someone's turned the key and suddenly you're thrown into menopause. And if it's medically induced, yes, but
Yeah.
typically that's not the case. But
Mm.
there are some key signs and some symptoms that women should be aware of as they're starting to approach these stages. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. There's the big three that it's not every woman. Like again, from woman to woman, these will be different and they'll be different in their intensity. Some women have they get very severe, intense symptoms and, that's unpleasant. Others, it's like, yeah, I kind of notice it, but yeah, I'm dealing with it. But the big three that I hear probably 85% more of the time is, first of all, can't sleep, just insomnia, not able to sleep through the night. And that makes us very angry because there's nothing
Yeah.
worse than being tired and not being able to fall asleep or stay asleep for more than a couple hours. So sleep, weight gain, and just mood swings.
Yeah. And some of those mood swings can be pretty severe. And
They
a
can
lot
be,
of times people really beat themselves up
yeah,
about it, not realizing that it's a symptom of what, you should be dealing with. I know when my mother was entering menopause, she was not a nice person. And then she felt really badly about it until she realized, because I mean that generation, forget it. They did not talk about menopause at all.
yeah,
Finally, when she said something to her mother about it and she said, "Oh, well, you're experiencing, the change." And she was like,
change.
"What does that even mean?" She goes, "It means you need to go to your gynecologist."
Ah, yeah.
So
That's
even
yeah.
talk about it, but go to your doctor. But I mean, that is something like, one, you should be talking to your friends, right? You should be talking to a holistic health practitioner like yourself. You should be talking to your gynecologist because you don't have to suffer those things.
Right. I think the talking about it is key and not just it's like, women over for years would when they find out a friend's pregnant, then they're getting together and they're having tea and everybody's talking about their experiences and talking about what worked or what didn't, or here's, you got to try this brand of onesie and you got to like all the things because it's exciting and we share, we want to like wrap our arms around this woman and kind of like bring her into that fold. Well, the same's to be said about menopause. We still need a place to feel like we can talk about it where we go, okay, it's not just me. I'm not losing my mind. This is something that's actually happening in my body. And it is having these effects. It is causing me to, when my husband walks in the door or my kids walk in the door and say, oh, shoot, if I forgot to grab milk on the way home, and you completely burst into a ball of tears. Like,
Mm,
you don't know why. And they're looking at you like you're crazy and you're feeling crazy. So having our tribe
yeah.
to just have conversations with is just important for our own sanity, for our own sense of feeling like this is something we're going through. And as well as, when it comes to when it does happen, I'm a believer of teams. I feel like you really have to be an advocate for your own health.
Yes.
If you go somewhere and you're having a conversation with a medical doctor or any kind of alternative therapist that you're talking to, and you kind of don't like what you hear, go talk to somebody else. You have to be an advocate and you have to really start putting together who are the people that are going to be in that corner for me that are going to help me navigate this. Because are we talking simply with supplementation, diet, and exercise? Is there a need for HRT? Some women, a lot of times, especially those that have a medically induced menopause, it's highly recommended that they do some HRT. But these are all conversations to have with the people you choose to work with or have them work for you, because you really need to look at it. These people are working for me. I'm not feeling my best. And I'm trusting these people to help give me the advice and the guidance to feel better and better as I get through this. So you really need to design and create your team of wellness. These are
I like
people
that.
that are working for you.
Yeah, I really like that whole concept of a team. So just to make sure that I understand, as the listeners do too, HRT is hormone replacement therapy.
Yes, hormone replacement therapy. Yes.
Perfect. And we talk about tribes all the time. So why wouldn't we want a tribe of women and health professionals who can help us through all of these times that we all are going to go through? And I love the fact that we had Tonya here to help us to kind of start to explore those things and to really navigate our own health journeys and really have some confidence in that. So, listeners, I hope that you found this to be really eye-opening, and Tanya's information will be in the show notes. So if you have questions, I'm sure she would love for you to reach out. Thank you so much for helping to enlighten all of us, Tonya.
Thank you for having me.
Do you think one of the biggest advantages to aging is all the knowledge we gain along the way? Me too. What did you learn today? Share with me in my Facebook group with the same name as this podcast, Advantages to Aging. Now hit subscribe so you don't miss all the tips to come in future episodes.